Welcome to Webinar Wednesday and the exciting start of our 2021 series. Today's presentation will be moderated by Monty Gonzalez, Director of College of Biomedical Equipment Technology, and will feature William Bassuk of CER Technology, LLC, as he helps the service professional better understand how to start up a business specializing in biomedical service repair. Bill will focus on the steps involved with getting a service company registered as a DBA or corporation and help the service professional understand the compliance needed to work as a company in this industry. Bill is a leader in healthcare technology management and an educator with a passion for post-secondary education and continued development for biomedical technicians and IT professionals. Having personally developed and pioneered the first accredited distance education degree programs for BMETs and HTMs, Bill is the CEO and chairman of the board of directors for Career Institute of Technology. He brings both a wealth of expertise and a modern approach to healthcare technology management industry. Webinar Wednesday would like to thank our sponsor, CER Technology. CER Technology's mission is to increase patient safety and healthcare accessibility by implementing measurable improvements and reducing program costs in healthcare technology management. Visit cer-technology.com for more information. Let's give one lucky attendee the opportunity to win a Webinar Wednesday Webinerd t-shirt by answering the following question. CER Technology is based out of what city? You can find the answer on our sponsor's website, and please answer the question by using the questions feature in your GoToWebinar dashboard. A few announcements before we get started. We have opened registration for MD Expo 2021 in Dallas, Texas on April 16th and 17th, 2021. For more details, visit mdexposhow.com. Make sure to sign up there for our newsletter so that you can receive the most up-to-date information. As always, today's webinar is eligible for one continuing education credit from the ACI. You can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey that will be emailed out after the end of today's webinar. We will wrap up today's webinar with a live Q&A session. You can submit your questions anytime during the webinar by using the questions feature on the webinar dashboard. We will get through as many attendee questions as time allows. As I mentioned earlier, today's speakers are Monty Gonzalez and Bill Bassuk. Gentlemen, you may begin whenever you are ready.
You're welcome.
My name is Richard Gonzalez. I'm the director of the College of Biomedical Equipment Technology, and I'm really honored today to have with me Bill Bassuk, the CEO and founder of CER Technology. The reason we're here today is twofold. Really, as a vocational college serving the healthcare industry, one of our top priorities is staying as closely nested to the industry as possible so that we can ensure that our students graduate with the tools and skills that they need to go to work the next day. So we team and regularly work with companies like Bill's to ensure that our curriculum, our instruction, and what we're providing to our students is as good as it can be. So we asked Bill to come in today, and we have a very specific question for him based on some student feedback that we've received recently. And we have a large number of students that are interested in starting their own business. So if you're a brand new guy in the industry and you want to know how to get started, where do you start?
That's a good question. Thank you for the introduction, by the way. I started out as a specialized biomed, so I worked in the hematology and chemistry arena. From there, I worked with core in management, went to Barnes-Jewish and learned how to be an HTM manager in an in-house program. And from there, I went to Patriot Medical, where I was a director, regional director, service in hospitals throughout 8 states here, managing them. With all that knowledge that I attained, learning from each of these different jobs that I had, I was able to develop my own company, CER Technology, based on a niche in the industry that was needed at the time in 2002. So we've had the opportunity to align ourselves with the right people and to be fortunate enough to get the hospitals that we did have to grow and partner.
So let me ask a question, Bill. So, Bill, you're more humble than you should be because you've been doing this for a long time and you've been at it for a long time. I know you don't like to admit it, but you have nearly 40 years of experience in the healthcare industry.
It sounds so old when you say it like that, Monty.
So let's say we have a student that doesn't have 40 years to build up enough momentum to start their own business and they want to get started today. Okay, and before you answer, think, a lot of our students like you come from military backgrounds. Right. They have that rich depth of experience in the military, all these skills, all this training, all these tools, and they want to go out and work. They have the leadership, the talent. Where do they start?
All right, well, that's a good question, Monty. And just so you know, I didn't wait 40 years before I started my business. So if I'm old to a lot of you out there, I started when I was a lot younger. So the main thing that I would suggest where a student starts is, just like anything else, you have to have that passion, that desire, the dream. And with that, you establish your vision. You need to have that vision. And more importantly, you should do a business plan. Write your vision on paper. And therefore, you have something that you can measure tangibly to see if you're hitting those short-term goals to meet your long-term goals. The other thing I would make sure that you would have is make sure you have enough capital to sustain yourself for however long you set that goal for yourself, whether it be 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year before the company starts making revenue.
I mean, you've brought up 3 really kind of big picture topics, including vision, business plan, resources, and capital. When you talk about vision, can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by vision?
Yeah, well, I'll speak on my own experience as far as vision is concerned. Vision is very important because without it, you don't know what you want to do. With the vision, you have to, the way it worked for me was I envisioned something. I saw it as a picture, and it was crystal clear in that picture. And now what I ended up doing is I took that vision, which obviously was my passion as well, and I started working towards that. What do I need to do to make this picture happen in real life? And from there, it took me to, okay, for me to start this business, I need to have some kind of a business plan. And so from my vision, my next step was to start articulating on a business plan. And it doesn't have to be anything major. It could be a basic business plan. It could be a 1-page business plan for now. But as you continue with your dream and your passion, you'll expand on that. And from there, you can decide what your budget's going to be and how to get into capital and what else you need besides capital, your networking, your resources, and your tools. Everything else will follow that. But you start off basically, just put your thoughts on paper and then you take it from there.
And I know a business plan, unless you graduated from a business school, could be somewhat of a foreign and daunting concept. Where does a new Biomed turn for support?
That's a great question, Monty. One of the things that I did when I first started, I wasn't a business genius by any means. I got a software packet, BizPlan Pro that's out there. There's other businesses that you could pick up online, software packets, and it pretty much asks you questions. Everything that you need to know about your business, the program will ask you, and you just fill in the answers. And then once you fill in the answers, you go back and you get into more detail. And next thing you know, within a few days, a week, you have yourself a business plan. And then hopefully you have some capital saved. Make sure you have enough capital to sustain you for however long you want, whether it's 1 month or whether it's up to a year. That's really important. The highest failure from most small businesses that start is they're undercapitalized. They don't have enough money to operate and fall short and end up closing their doors.
So I have a question on that, Bill. So, several times you've talked about capital and resources and funding. There's a lot of talent out there, very talented students graduating from our programs who have that entrepreneurial bug and spirit and would love to start their own business but lack the capital. If you were to divine a path forward for that entrepreneur who has the vision, has the business plan, but lacks the capital, what would you tell that student? I mean, you have a successful company and you've said, I would be more than willing to work with students and guide them and partner with them. Do you partner with small businesses?
I haven't yet, but it's something I'm looking into in the future. So, but I would tell that person who has that expertise is to shoot me an email, tell me what their needs are, explain to me their business plan, and I can advise and recommend what I think would be best for them. With banks, you have to be careful. They will lend you the money if you don't need the money. If you need the money, they won't lend it to you. That was my own personal experience. So I had to make sure that I was properly, had enough capital to sustain me. I was fortunate. My wife was an RN, so we were able to live off of her budget while I was working mine. That's not the case with everybody. You know, if you're the only salary and you want to start your own business, you have to be wise as to how you do it and manage it correctly. You know, so don't, just because you have an idea and the banks don't want to lend you money, don't be discouraged about it. You have to have that tenacity. Remember your dream in the first place. And if you still truly believe in that vision and have that passion, what I would do is say, what is the infrastructure that I need and who can help me? Who's a good mentor to me? Who's been through this process already, so you don't have to make the same mistakes that we made coming up in the industry as small business owners. If possible, try to get affiliated with the business. You have a larger company help you, and you may have to pay them something or share some of the profits for a while, but just enough to get enough experience under your belt where you can, so to speak, cut the umbilical cord and work on your own then without the help of a senior company.
And I think that's really important. I know one of the things that we do at the college is we are a part of the Military Skill Bridge program,
Right,
which is a fantastic program that takes and supports service members leaving the military to gain a little bit of education, gain some hands-on training, and have an opportunity to compete at a very competitive level for a great job with a great company.
Right.
So I see that as being very aligned to sort of what you're describing in terms of finding that right mentor, finding that right opportunity, creating that opportunity through your own hard work. So there is no roadmap for success, but there is a map.
Yes.
And you have to decide which direction and which path you're going to take. You've covered having a vision and seeing your objective and laying that out. You've talked about the importance of having a business plan that is modeled and aligned with your vision and getting those things in place. And you've talked about the critical importance of understanding the resource requirements and mustering those resources to help make sure you're a success. And if I was starting a business tomorrow with a general base of knowledge and a little bit of expertise, is there a particular area you would encourage me to explore based on opportunity today?
When you find your niche, whatever that is, mine happened to be budgeting, to help the hospital reduce their budgeting at the same time increasing the quality. I would say find whatever niche you have. Go with the low-hanging fruits. Use suction regulators first if that's what you can do. If you're the best suction regulator repair person out there, then use that as your expertise that you have. If it's defibrillators, if it's whatever you can, if it's not the hospital that you're able to help, but maybe the independent service organization where you can provide them a better product for what they're doing it themselves, then use that to your advantage. I mean, if you happen to be specialized in anything, that's great, because then you could focus on the specialization. What I found to be true with my personal experience growing a business, my expertise was consulting on a whole, the entire hospital as far as HTM is concerned, but opportunity arose from that. They would say, hey, we need some help in the lab, and the OEM wants to charge us $5,000 to do this repair. Because I was a specialist on lab equipment, I was able to do the repair for half the price, and now this was all new business that was given to me. So always look for opportunities based on your experience and knowledge, and it's like the snowball effect. You might just get suction regulators now, or oxygen regulators, and from there you might end up getting defibrillators and something higher, infusion pumps, and beds. A lot of people don't like working on beds. You can offer your services on that. So I wouldn't discard the low-hanging fruit. That could be the most profitable for you if you're willing to do the work.
Okay, and conversely, is there a particular sector of the industry that you would tell entrepreneurs to avoid? It's just too problematic, too much overhead, too much risk.
Not really. If I go into anything, I would say the risk is in surgical equipment, dialysis equipment, anesthesias. But if you're an expert on that and you know what you're doing, I'm not going to steer you away from that. I'd encourage you to go for it. But if you don't know what you're doing, I'm not going to encourage you to go get that business either. Work on what you know. And you can always hire a subject matter expert to work for you. Use your resources.
When you look at the industry today, if you're going to encourage a student along a certain path and to help shape and mold their vision as a mentor and guide, where would you tell them to look? Where would you point that student?
Well, there's a couple places I would tell them to look. Obviously, every hospital now is budget conscious. So if they can provide a service as small as an oxygen regulator to repair, and they can do it better pricing than the OEM can or another third-party company, I would say start with the low-hanging fruit, whatever is attainable at first, and then work your way from one opportunity to another one comes.
Based on these discussions we've had, what other insights can you provide to an entrepreneur in terms of thinking of how do I set the conditions to be successful working in the healthcare industry, managing the regulatory compliance requirements that I'll have, working on these life-saving pieces of equipment or medical devices?
Well, that brings up an excellent question, Monty. One of the things that I would encourage everybody to learn before they develop their own business is to understand the Joint Commission, how they operate, how they inspect the hospitals and what they inspect for, and what their codes represent. Joint Commission has a lot of EC codes, so you need to understand that. Secondly, I would understand what the DNV, how they inspect, the DNV GL. They inspect a little bit differently. They inspect more towards ISO 9000 guidelines, so they're very detailed. So an example would be if you take out the trash, you have a very detailed, summarized version. Step A, it's 4 o'clock, I get up, I take out the bag, tie it off, throw it in the trash can, and put it in a new bag. That's what they look for in repairing equipment as well on that, policies and procedures. So when I go to an account, and it's going to be a little more difficult from someone starting up their business, but not impossible with the help of a larger company. When I go to an account and I tell them I'd like to take a look at auditing them and possibly being a service provider for them, I make sure that I understand their compliance by talking to them about policies and procedures, their equipment management that they have. I look at their policies and procedures, and I also ask them about how they perform their EOC, the Environmental Care Committee, how they meet, what do they discuss, and I try to understand what their needs are. And normally if you go to a customer and you're talking to them, first of all, that's a good sign. That means they're interested in what you have. Secondly is listen more than talk. As they're talking to you, you can pick up on some of the needs. They won't hesitate to tell you what their needs are, and then you focus in on their needs. So you're not trying to oversell, you're just having a normal conversation with them.
So, Bill, obviously from the educational perspective, we view credentialing and education as critical to one's success. From the college, it is always our goal to ensure that our students graduate with the training, the knowledge, the education, the skills necessary to go to work for CER Technology or any of the other companies out there, ready to go to work and turn wrenches on day one, if you will. We view the academic components that they receive at the college as the first step, as the foundation to their career, and then follow on professional credentialing such as earning their CAB-T certification upon graduation, the CBET, CHTM, CRES, and others. Those sorts of professional credentials serve as indicators to one's talent, skills, capabilities, professionalism. So when we look at that from the education perspective, it's our intent that we're trying to align our students with your needs as a business owner and entrepreneur. Right. So if you were an entrepreneur on day one considering what are the skills that I need, what are the credentials that I need to start a business and be successful, what thoughts come to mind?
Well, that's a really good question that you proposed there. Now, I highly encourage everyone that is a Biomed right now or HTM specialist, if you don't have your certifications, I encourage you to get them. The reason why is hospitals and independent service organizations and manufacturers are looking more and more on higher credentialing. So what used to be accepted 5 years ago is no longer accepted now. 5 years ago, it was normal to have 50% of the biomed population without their certification, but now, if you don't have your certification, it's very difficult to get a job. And if without your certification, it's even more difficult to start your own company. So I would highly suggest whatever area of expertise you're in, get your certification. So if you're a generalist, get your CBET after 2 years. Right after your students graduate to college, you encourage them to take the CBAT. Is that what it's called?
The CAB-T.
The CAB-T, sorry. I always get that mixed up. The CAB-T, you always encourage them to do that, as do I. Then from there, I would say if you're in X-ray, then get your CRES. Get every credentialing you possibly can. You're being graded on everything you do. If you go to a customer, they're going to try to Google you, go online and see what they can find out about you. So it's important that you have all your credentialing. First of all, have your formal education. And in a business, an associate's degree is fine, even a certificate program is fine, as long as you're the subject matter expert on whatever it is you decide to do. Myself, personally, I had my master's degree, and the reason why is at the level that I decided to work on consulting, that's what they would be required from what it is that I do in the healthcare industry, which is oversee the entire department. I've been in this industry for over 30 years now, and in the last 2 years, I just got my CHTM. Not because I thought I didn't need it, because I figured to be competitive in this industry, you need every certification you can get. And the AMI is a highly reputable institution to get these certifications from.
So I think that's a really good point that you make there, Bill. You've got, again, you hate to admit, but nearly 40 years in the industry.
Correct.
Yet, you are still continuing to pursue continuing education.
Absolutely.
And that idea of a lifelong learner is that's just not empty words. These things count. And as a business owner, you pointed out you have a master's degree, you continued your formal education, you also have your certifications, and you've not stopped seeking those certifications. So we know that AMI offers the CHTM, CBAT, CAB-T, CRES, and others. All of them we view as incredibly valuable to one of our graduating students' resume. What other certifications would you point to that are important for an entrepreneur?
Well, there are quite a bit of other certifications you can get. One that I highly recommend is the CHOP certification. It's on compliance, and it's with the DNV GL, which is a German company. It's a company that comes from Norway. The GL part is from Germany, and they focus specifically on compliance. And hospitals that are DNV certified uses that to inspect their hospitals.
Okay, so you hit on an interesting concept and a point that we didn't talk about earlier when we were talking about certification and credentials. And you can see how that connects to the resource requirements and other things that you need to do to set the conditions for a successful business. We recognize that in the industry there's some niche fields that you can get into and get a start at and do really well. We have several colleagues in the industry with startup companies, small businesses that are prospering, even in a COVID-19 environment, doing really well. In my opinion, largely based on the niche, their expertise, and just the caliber of person that they are. But when you start to look at some of these niche industries, you mentioned very specialized types of equipment and certain types of certifications and things that go along with that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Are there some particular sectors that require more certification, more credentialing, and more work to get started in than others?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Specialized equipment such as radiology, ultrasound, laboratory, you need to get certified on that device. You can be liable if you're working on a sophisticated piece of equipment and you don't have the proper training on it. So that's where compliance comes in. So make sure that whatever your niche is, that you have the documentation to back up your knowledge or whatever training or formal education you received on the various devices that you work on.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. You're an entrepreneur, you want to start a business. How much do credentials count?
They count a lot, to be honest with you. Depending, again, where you go. If you're going directly to the hospital, they count tremendously. If you're going to an independent service organization and you can offer them a saving on what they do, they'll use their credentialing. You can piggyback off of their credentialing as long as you're providing them with a part or service that they need. Now, if you're working where you do refurbishment on equipment and you have a warehouse, so to speak, where you store the equipment and do all the repairs there, then I strongly suggest you get ISO 9000 certified. Now, I don't have that certification or credentialing, but that's not my niche either. So for the people who are starting their own business, wanting to do home depot repair, so to speak, that's a certification that I would look into. And it's not a quick process. It might take up to 6 months to get that certification taken care of. There's a lot of work that's required with it.
Okay. So, Bill, you talked, quite a bit about different certifications, credentialing requirements, knowing your business, working what you know, and we go back and tie some of that to the business plan, resource considerations, and part of business planning is considering your risk and liability and how you can mitigate that. For a new entrepreneur, what advice would you give them in terms of considering risks and liability, and what can they do to sort of shore up the castle walls to defend against that?
Well, that's a good question. I was going to get into that a little bit later, but you brought it up now, and I think it's a good time. As a service company that I have limited liability insurance, and the price varies. It varies on how much business you have. If you have one hospital, they'll give you a set price based on square footage and the amount of equipment that you're working with and the amount of FTEs that you have that are working with you. What they do is they go back and they look at your history, and if it's clean, the price is usually lower. They do look at your credit history, and if that's clean, the prices are lower for the insurance. As far as liability is concerned too, you may want to get bonded. So you have your liability insurance, but then as your school has a bond, a service company should look and have a bond. When I had hospitals that were paying for me to do the entire service, I made sure that I had a bond to cover whatever their annual budget was for that. So if it was a $5 million account, I'd make sure I had a bond to cover the $5 million, which showed the customer they weren't afraid about a small company taking their check and running with it. So that's the reason why liability insurance is very important. And most importantly, test equipment on whatever equipment you're going to work on. The important thing one must remember with test equipment is make sure you get it certified or calibrated every year, because if you work on equipment and you don't get it calibrated, if something happens to that equipment and it causes patient harm, you could be liable for that. So make sure that you understand how important your test equipment is. If you don't have liability insurance and there is an accident with the SMDA Act, which is Safe Patient Act, if your device harms someone after you worked on it, you're liable for that. They can come back and sue you for that. And without liability insurance, you pretty much have to file a bankruptcy, because they'll just keep coming after you and it's in the millions of dollars. So make sure it's not expensive. Insurance ranges anywhere from $500 a month to $5,000, and the $5,000 is if you have a large company.
Okay.
And we can get into more detail on that after this. If any of your students have questions, feel free to just email me and I'll give them more specific answers on that.
We're going to pivot now to a new topic, Bill, that's not so technical in nature.
Great.
And we're going to talk on a different topic, focusing really on what is commonly referred to as soft skills, but I think as we refer to more as critical skills.
Right.
How you speak, how you communicate, the relationships of trust that you form, those sorts of things, your ability to write efficiently, how you respond. What are those other components, those missing components, or the X factor that will make the entrepreneur successful?
Well, that's a great question, and it varies from people to people. But from what I've understand and from what I've seen in the industry, and I speak on experience on this, communication is critical. Correct communication. If I was talking to you, Monty, like this, and then all of a sudden I'm looking over here having a conversation with you, you're going to feel I'm not engaged with you, or I must be bored. So make sure you have that eye contact when you talk to the customer. If you only have 30 seconds in a meeting, you have 30 seconds to scan the area, see what's around, and see if you can have something that's relatable to the customer and yourself that you can talk about to kind of lighten it up a little bit. The next thing I would make sure is that aside from excellent oral and written communication skills, make sure you have excellent people skills. And if you don't, it doesn't mean you won't have it. Get some books to understand people skills. Look at body language. If someone's sitting with their arms like this, they're closed off, they're not engaged. But if they have their arms open, so the way you're sitting and I'm sitting, we're open for dialogue, and we're interested in what our ideas are, what your ideas are and what mine. The thing I would say about your customer, there's 4 different personalities. And that's a great book that the students may want to purchase later. It's called Personality Plus. Understand the 4 different personalities, and that's on the very basic level. And I believe you might teach that in one of your professional development courses. But understand that people are different, but they all fall under 4 categories. And if you can identify with them on each of those categories, then that opens the doors more for you.
So one of the things that I really admire about you and the way you run your business, Bill, is that you really treat everyone with respect, top down. And at the same time, you're fearless in terms of going in and talking to people.
Right.
There's no barrier there. So that's kind of an unusual thing for a lot of people. So what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who is somewhat anxious about approaching a client or an opportunity and is trying to muster the courage to go do that?
People have all kinds of different fears. Speaking in front of large groups, speaking to people that are higher rank, considered. If you think CEO's out of your reach, then he's out of your reach or she's out of your reach. I would say be yourself and know that the person that you're contacting or speaking with has the same needs you do. Essentially, they have the same needs you do. And if their need, and you have a skill to provide something for their needs, don't be afraid. Just be confident. Be humble and confident when you talk to whoever your potential customers can be. And it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay not to know. Just be honest. Say, I don't know that. That's a great question, but I will get back to you. And if you say you will get back to them, make sure you follow up. Without the follow-up, you can lose a lot of clients. And when you do get the clients, make sure you treat them like they're the king. Always follow up. Make sure that they think they're the most important thing to your company without any question. If you can do that, you'll keep the customers.
We have a couple of courses in the program here, Bill, that we use to sort of prepare our students for the real world, for the industry. And in one of the courses, we talk about communications and how to build those relationships of trust and really get your foot in the door. As an entrepreneur and a businessman, what advice would you give to a new student in terms of establishing their performance record, establishing and creating an elevator pitch, if you will, establishing their bona fides and getting that first handshake that, as you know, is so important to landing your first contract?
What I would do then is make sure there's 2 ways of pitching. You have your 30-second elevator pitch. You can say, oh, by the way, these are the things that I can do for you. Most of the time, I would say individuals don't start their own company unless they already have a vision and some clientele that they already know that they can approach. Just to do it, point blank without any clientele, that'd be difficult. When I started my own company, I had an idea of some of the people that I can go to, understanding what their needs were before I started my company. That was one of the reasons that they gave me the idea to start the company. They said, why isn't there companies out there that does this particular thing? And that's how I got my idea to start, my own company. With most people that get into this industry are not going to do it blindfolded. They have somewhat of an idea of what they want to do or who they want to approach. And it's a difficult question to answer on the long term, but if they have that, they already know who they want to approach. I can't tell you who I would approach.
I think it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier with the role of mentors. Having,
Right.
If it's not a big company, just a mentor, somebody who's in the industry already that you can, walk side by side with and lean on when you need that support.
Right.
Look to for advice or guidance or support on, the little details. Maybe it's an introduction to your first contract, things like that.
Right.
That's good. From your experience, you've started multiple businesses over your career. What are some of the key elements of the business plan that you would tell an entrepreneur to focus on?
I would say check on your blind spots, because we don't have all the answers in business, and you're obviously taking a lot of risk when you start your own business. So be honest to yourself and admit what your weaknesses are, and then start working on that. So if your weakness is organization, for example, which was mine, make sure you have someone in your company that can help you with that. And if you're really small, make sure that's maybe your wife, a brother, or sister or something. But cover your blind spots, because if you don't, it'll just bite you later on.
Okay, and when you're thinking about resources, I can see how these 3 are connected. Have a vision, develop a plan, assess your resource requirements. Are there any particular resource requirements associated with a startup company as a biomed tech company?
Oh, absolutely. For example, when I first started, I found myself where the hospital was asking me to get parts, and I was basically giving consultation on how to run a department and not to purchase parts for them. So I made a point to learn all the different part companies out there and which one was the best, not necessarily the manufacturer, but independent service organizations that are certified. You can get parts from them sometimes at a much better cost than you could from the OEM, where the hospital wouldn't know that, and then you give the hospital that saving, and you can make a little bit of profit at the same time.
Great big picture stuff, Bill, to think about as we're looking at opportunities for new entrepreneurs. Now let's get right down into the weeds, into Business 101. I'm going to take your information, take it back to a class of students and say, okay, this is exactly what you need to do to start your business. What are those steps? Oh,
that's a good question. And there's so many different ways one can do it, but this is what worked best for me. And so if you have a better way, by all means, do it your way. But as far as what I would recommend is get yourself a DBA, which means doing business as, and it's simple. You just go downtown to the courthouse, at least here in San Antonio, and it's only like $25. You get a certified DBA, whatever your name is. And the reason why you have to do that is you want to make sure that whatever name that you're running under, it's been approved by the courthouse, so no one else has the same name as you. And they'll certify that name for you for 10 years. It belongs to you. And from there, you could either make it a DBA, doing business as, or you could turn it into a corporation, an LLC, S Corp, or C Corp, and we're not going to go into that right now, but those are your different options, and that's for tax reasons that you would do that, whatever tax protection you would want. And then from there, you need to establish an EIN number, and what that is, that's a number outside your Social Security that the state offers you if you are an LLC, where they tag you on everything that you do with profits. You have to use your EIN number. That's what the bank wants to see. And speaking of banks, that's the next thing you need to do, is you need to set up a bank account, because most companies won't want to do business with you or give you a check under your personal name. They'd like to see a bank account with your company's name on it. And it shows you more credibility too when you do that. After that, I would say either learn QuickBooks or get an accountant to make sure that your numbers are correct and everything you're doing is according to the IRS standards. And then get yourself a website and a logo. And the logo you don't necessarily have to have right away, but it's important you have a website, because people want to see the professionalism that one has in their company. If you don't have a website, then they're going to look at you as a company kind of working out of your garage. So represent yourself in a professional manner with everything that you do. And then create your own documents. For example, your invoice. Have your logo on your invoice. Have your logo on your business card. And that's one of the first things that I would do.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit and ask you about marketing. So some of what you're describing to me makes me wonder, you have everything you need. You have all your tools, your resources, a great vision, a plan. What considerations go into marketing your business? How do you sell it? Where does that start?
Well, when I started, again, I'm just going to let you know where I started, because I know it's a whole new age now and it starts differently. I would say website is most important. People will not even look at you, give you a second look if you don't have a website. Have your business cards. You need to present confidence in everything you do, but make sure that you can back that confidence up with your credentials, because if you can't, it's going to harm you more than do you any good. I would make sure that when it comes to marketing, that you go out and do webinars like we're doing now. Get your name out there. Go to trade shows. Let people know who you are. In my case, I would go to trade shows. I would go to hospitals around my area of servicing and see if they have any needs. And just, start dialogue, start relationships. That's where it starts from. You're not going to get a sale right away. But if you're talking to a customer all the time, or a potential customer, look at it as gardening. You're harvesting now. You're just gardening them. You're giving them everything they need. And then if they have a need later on, they're going to remember who you are, and they'll call you back.
Well, thanks, Bill. Truly appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. We have 100 to 150 students graduating annually from the college, and I'd say 20 to 30% of them are truly interested in starting their own businesses and working in this industry. So we appreciate your role as a mentor and your willingness to take those students on and talk to them and guide them. if not directly, then indirectly. And we appreciate everything you do for us.
Well, thank you. And you guys are doing a great job with your school as well. My entire staff are all graduates from CBET in one of my hospitals in Victoria.
Excellent.
So thank you. Thank you, everybody. Oh, what the hell just happened? Oh, here we are. Hello?
Thank you so much, Bill, for a great presentation. I would like to open up now for our Q&A session. Hi, guys. Okay, we do have a few questions that have come in so far, and I wanted to address those to you. There's a little bit of an echo. I'm not sure where that's coming from, so bear with me if I hesitate a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, our first question is, are there resources or people available to help create a business plan?
Yes, there are. There's a few software packets out there, as I had mentioned earlier in the video, as well as you can pretty much ask any company, if you know the company owners, they are the smaller ISOs, they'd be more than happy to help you, as well as my company. And of course, the school is willing to help anybody that needs to have a business plan to start their own business.
Yeah, Jennifer, from the other, from the school perspective, we encourage our students to find a mentor locally. If you can get somebody to chaperone you and kind of help you better understand the landscape and the nuances of a detailed business plan and what goes into that, I think you don't need to pay for an expensive software or go to school and get a business degree in order to come up with a business plan. You just need to have all the pieces and parts in place, and it always helps to have somebody there to guide you.
Excellent. Okay, our next question is, are there any companies out there that can support entrepreneurs interested in starting their own business?
Well, that all depends on what their niche is going to be. For example, if you're an expert in repairing radiology equipment, you pretty much have your choice of what company you can help, because independent service organizations as well as hospitals are always looking to reduce their budget and their cost. And if you're certified on the equipment and can provide that service for the hospital or the independent service organization, they'd probably give you enough work to keep you busy.
All right, our next question is, what credentialing considerations go into starting your own business?
Well, again, it depends. If you're in the consulting business, I would say get your CHTM and possibly on the DNB GL. That would be a good credentialing to have for compliance. This way, they could see that you know what you're doing with compliance as well as management. And then if you're good with your hands and you're actually working on equipment, your CBET would be a great certification to have. And this is along with any formal education that you already may have, as well as your experience.
And I'll say, Jennifer, the educational opportunities are unlimited, and we advocate strongly for the lifelong learner approach. Our students who graduate either from our certificate or our associate degree program, they're all encouraged to continue down that path and look for other opportunities. Amy offers a number of really important certifications, like Bill alluded to, but there are others out there as well. Some offered from a variety of different companies out there with particular areas of expertise, and the DNV or just other avenues. And they should always be looking for what's next in terms of credentialing and preparing themselves for the future and creating opportunities through their credentials, which at the end of the day, that is their company. The strength of their people and the strength of their credentials is their company.
Great. Okay, our next question is, what would be a good EMS besides Excel spreadsheets for a small startup that may not have a ton of capital to invest?
Okay, did you say EMS?
Yes.
All right, so I imagine they're looking imagine they're looking at spreadsheets or some sort of office documents. Um, QuickBooks is a good one to start with. That one pretty much has all the information you need to start your own business, and it'll ask you the right questions. You may need to get some training on it. It's not real simple. It takes a little bit to get involved with it to understand it in great detail.
And I'd say from a broader perspective, Jennifer, one of the things that I would encourage somebody going down this road to consider is before investing heavily into different software packages or anything really for that matter, you know, especially if you don't have a ton of capital to invest, then start smaller. You know, you can create your own spreadsheets on an Excel spreadsheet, and you can manage, you know, that way. And sometimes starting small and understanding the detail with, you know, with your company and having tremendous fidelity on these things without relying on a software package, that can be a good thing because it helps you grow and know your company much better than you would be able to if you outsourced those requirements either to another organization, another person, or through some software. So there comes a time when you scale up and you start to need those things to make your business more profitable and more successful. But to start, there's nothing wrong with starting small.
Oh, and Jennifer, one more thing, just in case that person said CMS, which is a database, they can do it off of an Excel spreadsheet. I've done it off of Excel spreadsheet until I got into a larger format where I went out and found a better database to work with. But there are numerous databases out there, and they're willing to work with you based on the size that you have. So don't be afraid to call up all the database companies to see which one is best for your needs. They have them out there for really inexpensive to obviously really expensive. So you just have to see which one best fits your needs.
Great, thank you guys. Okay, our next question will be, you guys are gonna have to break out your crystal ball for this one. So it is there one part of the country that would be easiest to break into? So what, you know, starting out, is there a part of the country that you may recommend over another?
Not really. It depends on what the needs are. I can't say start out in one city versus another one because I have no idea. I just know that I looked at what the needs were in my geographical region when I decided to go in business, and from there was able to plot out a business plan.
All right, our next question is, can you please elaborate on credentials that an HTM can prepare himself with if he already has around 15 years of experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, with the experience, they should be able to do their CBET exam. They also have the new test that came out that's more for beginners, which is the CCAB or the CAB-C, I'm sorry. But I would recommend the CHTM and the CHOP-B class, which is the compliance one.
To add to that, Jennifer, we have, you know, at the college, we have a large number of our students come to us with a lot of experience, sort of reflecting the last person's question that indicated they have 15 years. We have some of our students that are 20 plus years in the industry and working as directors for healthcare systems. You should always seek that continuing education, and even if you have 15 years of experience, there's always going to be a wall to advancement if you don't continue your education. Things are always changing. So, you know, we advocate for formal education, certification, certificate, get your associate degree. We're working closely right now with a partner educational institution, charter college, to develop a 4-year degree program for HTM professionals. We're hoping to launch that sometime in the spring, early summer, and that'll give, you know, individuals like the one that asked the last question an opportunity to continue to advance that education and career path through education. So, lot of answers to that question, but our perspective really is you shouldn't stop learning. If it's not formal education, it's additional certification and certificates, and just look for other opportunities to advance academically.
All right, our next question is there a modality that is easier for a new company to gain traction so that it does not get lost among the other small biomed companies who compete against the big ones like Crothall, TriMedics, and GE?
Well, not really. Again, as I mentioned earlier in this video, get the low-hanging fruit, which is not necessarily, your low-hanging fruit could be portable x-rays if that's what you're an expert in. My best recommendation for anyone wanting to start in that business is do the best job you can. Be known for your quality, be known for your word. When you say you're going to do something, do it. And then eventually word will spread that when you say that you'll be at a site at a certain time, you're there. You communicate effectively with the customer. It's more about how you are presenting yourself and how you back up everything you say you're going to do with your actions and actually do it.
Great. Okay, a few more questions. Do you have any insurance, or I'm sorry, do you know what the insurance requirements are for a biomed business?
I do, and they vary from insurance company to insurance company. So the best thing to do is to call them and to get more information on that. As you give them my contact information, they can contact me directly, and I'll be more than happy to assist them to the right place, because that's a pretty broad question, and it may be good for one person and not good for another person.
Great. Okay, I think one more question. How do you manage service and repair with sales and promotions?
Well, that could be a tricky question. Well, if you're by yourself starting up a service company, then you have to be able to manage it. So what are you selling? You're selling a product, and you are the product and the service. So as you go out there and you sell yourself on it, now you're going to be the one that repairs it. If you have people that already work for you, or you have a business plan that's going to have a team start a biomed company, then whoever the person is that has the strengths in communicating and understanding the industry the best should be the one that does the sales, while the other person does the repairs. But the most important thing I could tell you is whoever does the sales, do not oversell. Make sure that you speak with whoever the repair staff is, or if you're doing it, that you can actually repair what you are selling. Because if you don't, or if you can't, that's going to be a sign for a quick diminishing of the company, shutting down really quick. So just be honest. That's the best thing I could tell you in this industry. Only sell what you can really repair.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Monty, for a great presentation. We have run out of time, but we have really enjoyed our time together today. I would like to encourage everyone to visit today's sponsor, CER Technology, to learn more about the services they provide to our industry. Please visit cer-technology.com. A quick reminder that you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. The survey will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 continuing education credit from the ACI, and you will be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. We will be back next week with another webinar. Please visit webinarwednesday.live for more details and complimentary registration. Thank you all and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.